Ford. Welcome to the last in LearningCreator.com series on how to select a writing system. Now, so far we've talked about why you need a learning system. We've talked about your writing requirements, and we've talked about a framework for understanding the various writing systems that are out there. And we've given you actually a bit of a hint as to where each of the systems sit. So let's do some fancy dancy editing again, just so that we can look at what we were talking about last week. Your types of writing you're doing will drive your actual selection. We talked about it being either time-based or fact-based, structured or unstructured, simple or complex. Now here's basically why you care about this. As you become more complex in your writing, as your writing becomes more difficult, it's drawing together more and more pieces, then you want to become more structured. You want to move your selection of writing system into the structured areas, because you want the system to do as much of the work as possible. If, on the other hand, you are producing something which is simple, then the structure really isn't that important. You can provide it yourself if you have to, and sometimes you want to overcome the amount of overhead. However, here's the kicker, and here's again why we really care about this. As I become more structured, then whether I'm time-based or fact-based becomes very important. So let's look at our writing systems themselves. The writing systems themselves are structured or unstructured, cognitive-based or non-cognitive-based. Now we would always want something which is cognitive-based if possible. I mean, that's a bottom line. The reason being that speed really only works for simple writing. If all we're producing, however, is simple writing, then that's fine. Speed is good. There's nothing wrong with it. If we're extremely, and here's where the kicker comes in, if we are extremely practiced at doing the type of writing that we do, then we no longer need the system to produce the structure for us. We no longer need the cognitive, and our position at which it changes between speed, system, non-cognitive based, and cognitive based will change. So we may not need the mind to create the information for us. Similarly, as we become more confident in creating it on the fly, we may find that we move between structured and unstructured systems. Now, generally, if we are writing a more complex piece, if that's what we're really aiming for, then we want to drive towards this area here, because we have to have the structure. Because it's complex, we can't track it ourselves very quickly. But equally, we want the cognitive base, because we don't want to do any more work than we have to, and we want the system to do as much of the work as possible. If, on the other hand, we're doing simple systems, then we can begin to move down further, and at some point the question is the system taking up too much overhead, or can we do it off the top of our head quickly? It's off. So it becomes a trade-off. Generally speaking, if you are starting out and this is your first book, you want to be in this area here. You want a system which is cognitive-based and structured. That means, however, that the system you choose has to match with the type of writing you're doing. So, whereas, for example, speed writing says, I can write anything at all, Learning Creator says, a cognitive-based structured system says, I need to know whether you're fact-based or whether you're timeline-based, because that's going to drive the choice of system. So essentially what you've got is 2 points that you need to make a decision on. You need to decide, am I doing something simple or am I doing the writing complex? If I'm doing it complex, then I need more of a system. I need a more formal system to write. Otherwise, I'm going to be spending too much time, too much effort on getting it out. Then I need to decide, if I am in the complex area, do I need one which will do time-based, or do I need one which will do fact-based? And then I need to match the system. The more structure, the more matched it has to be. Because a fact-based system in this area here, the cognitive structured, won't work for timeline writing. Similarly, a timeline-based writing system won't work for fact-based writing system, because the one uses one set of tools and the other uses a different set of tools. Once you've made your decisions there, then you can pick what type of system you have. There are a lot of systems around, a large number of them that match speed writing with school, because quite often speed writing is just, it's down real simple stuff. It's writing articles. And in order to do a book, you've got to add some form of structure to it. So it'll pick usually this tone. The other one that's picked quite often is this one, mind mapping and school. And that sort of overcomes a lot of the weaknesses with the speed writing. And then if you do some searching, you will find a few that are in this area, but a very few. Usually when you're up in this area, it's someone who has created it for their own use, because that's where most of the formal writers are doing. If you've got a professional writer, he's up in this area. Only he's up in this area because he's done it that way. He's created his own system that's matched to his writing style. You now have all the information you need to get out and select a system of writing that will provide you with what you require to produce that book that's sitting inside you. I mean, after all, you wouldn't have been talking or listening to me, or rather, since you weren't doing any talking, but you wouldn't be listening to me unless you had a book inside you that you really, really wanted to get out there. So I'm going to encourage you, definitely, do the writing. Find a system that'll work for you. Get out there and do it. On behalf of learningcreators.com and the team, I'm Glenn Ford, wishing you a good night